Today I'm doing a bit of an experiment and you're along for the ride. We're taking two Martins, both made in their Mexico factory, similar construction with slightly different construction methods and materials to see how different they actually are. So stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like our videos. If you want to support the channel, visit our spring store link below for custom swag, and check out our podcast with Cooper and I called the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. So today we're looking at two models. Like I said, these are two O bodies from Martin Guitars. They are both made in Mexico, and one costs twice as much roughly as the other one. They're very similar, and in some places they're very not similar. We're looking at the O X2E, which is this X series model over here, comparing it to the Rhodes series O 12E, which has been in the lineup for a bit. We've been big fans. Beautiful guitar. They're made of very similar kind of construction techniques, but there are some places where they diverge. And the question that I kind of pondered to myself for the rest of you is twice the price for the O 12E warranted? And are the changes in the construction manner beneficial to the guitar, and is it noticeable? So let's kind of talk about those. And we're going to start by looking at the X series. Now the X series has gone through some changes over the years, and I welcome most of those changes. Let's talk about the specs. I'll talk about what's changed over the years and why I prefer the changes. So like I said, this is a O X2E. It's a O body with a solid Sitka spruce top and back and sides of figured mahogany HPL. Now that term is an important one for the video. HPL stands for high pressure laminate. And the comparison we're doing today is between an HPL guitar and a guitar that features a more traditional laminate that Martin is calling a fine veneer. I'll explain what they're doing on the O 12E in a little bit. But this is HPL, okay? Now what that means is that you have this pattern on here of figured mahogany, but in no way is the back and sides of this guitar made of figured mahogany. And that's the same for an X series that has rosewood or has Macassar ebony. All those are figures. It's like a screen print that's on the guitar. The material that this is made of is more like Formica. It is a composite material made with wood and resin under high pressure to create this laminate material. Now the good thing about it is it's very robust. It stands up to abuse. It doesn't really scratch very easily. You have to really give it some abuse to damage the back and sides on this guitar. And that's a good thing, particularly at this price point, because a lot of times if you are buying this goes for around $650. It's really about the least expensive way to get into a full-size Martin guitar, which means you're probably a fairly new player buying this guitar. And so, you know, it just goes, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. When you're new to an instrument, you're learning how to take care of it, and you might tend to abuse it a little bit more than someone who's been playing for a long time and has learned to take care of their instrument. Usually through trial and error. Everyone's kind of been there, put holes and stuff, you know, allowed stuff to get too dry and crack and all of that stuff. So there's a good reason to have this, particularly at this price point. There are some downsides to HPL, things that I'm not a big fan of, and the biggest one is the weight. When you pick up this guitar, it has a bit of heft to it, and that is because of the back and side material that's on it. Also, because it's such a strong material, in a musical instrument, that can be a downside when it comes to the sound that you're going to get. So is it robust and will it stand up to abuse? Yes. Will it sound good? Well, because of its strength, it's not going to resonate. There's not going to be as much vibration that goes through it, if any at all. So no, the back and sides are not really going to get in on the act here. And that is why Martin can do these with various grains, and it's really an aesthetic option at that point. The top, however, is still very important. Being solid Sitka spruce, this is where majority of the sound of the guitar comes from. Whether it's a solid top or an all solid instrument, your top is really what's producing the primary tone. The back and sides on a solid wood instrument tend to color, or as I call it, it's like the EQ of the guitar, changing really the overtones and some of the accentuation that you have in frequencies, but not so much the response. That's what's going on up here. So you still get a solid top, which I've always said is of primary importance when you're buying an acoustic guitar. Now let's look at the rest of it. You've got a wooden bridge and a wooden fingerboard. This is an improvement, in my opinion, over previous X series. Now, I say that knowing that the next guitar I have to show you has a Richlite fingerboard, but most people have preferred a wooden fingerboard. Okay, so these used to be Richlite, now they're wood. It's a less expensive guitar. I'll talk about that, but and it has a solid wood neck. They used to have what was called a Stratobond neck, which looked really, really cool. It was a multi-laminate neck. I often joked that 50 Stratocasters had to die to build the Stratobond neck. That's how they were constructed. But the truth is, it was a lot of different pieces of wood that were put together. They looked really cool. They were extremely strong. The problem with them was, again, weight. Whenever you're taking multiple pieces of wood and you're gluing them together, that is going to be heavier than a solid piece of wood, period. The other reason I didn't really like the Stratobond necks was repairability. So because they were multiple layers of wood, if you had an issue, sometimes a stripped out hole for the strap button could be enough to kind of cause some problems when you went to repair that guitar, speaking from experience. So now it's all solid wood. Select hardwood is what Martin says. By the way, if you ask me what the bridge and the fingerboard are, I'm going to tell you select hardwood. I don't know. Martin on their website simply lists the specs as select hardwood. Now they do this on the neck a lot, which basically means there are some select woods that they might use on the neck, and that goes up on their more expensive instruments. So it might be mahogany, it might be Spanish cedar. It's going to be a suitable wood for that purpose. Same thing here with the fingerboard. I don't really like it, but I get it. I get that they're not specifying it's a particular wood. So this might be, it's lighter in color. It could be Palfaro. I don't think it's rosewood, Acippo, something like that. It's something that Martin has deemed as working, being robust enough to hold frets and act as the bridge, but being wood, which, like I said, a lot of people have preferred. Up at the headstock, you have HPL with the gold foil logo and Martin's tuners. They're just typical non-branded from any other company tuners that just say Martin on them. And you have a Fishman MX pickup in it. So good overall basic undersaddle pickup. So this is ready to go. You can plug in, and it comes with a fairly good gig bag for about $649. Okay, so that's the 000-2 XE. Now, going over to the 000-12, a lot of the things here are going to be the same. You have a solid Sitka spruce top. If you notice here, it looks like a nicer piece of spruce. It is a nicer piece of spruce. It's also gloss finished as opposed to being satin finished. We have binding on it. By the way, I should have mentioned that. When you look at the guitar, there's actually a gap on the X series right at the neck joint, and that's because they actually add a radius to the top of the guitar right on the edge, similar to what Taylor's been doing with some of theirs. So it's more comfortable, and there's no binding. What that means is that the neck joint's kind of noticeable. So just FYI, if you play one, you look down, that's normal. So this adds binding. It adds a gloss finish instead of the satin finish. It has a nice pearloid rosette. We have the Fishman MX pickup here. Now, I know what I said before. So on this guitar, we have Richlite for the bridge and for the fingerboard. Richlite is a man-made material. Some people have high opinions on it. I think it's fine here. I think it was fine on the X series, to be honest with you. And in fact, the fact that it's on a more expensive guitar tells you something. In some cases, this is a more expensive material to use than wood, some species of wood. I don't know if it's more expensive than ebony. Gibson made that claim years ago. They used to use Richlite on some of their higher end guitars, and people, kind of got in their feels about it. Understandably, sometimes you just want it to be wood. Whether a company tells you it's just as good or better. But one of the things about Richlite over the years has been it's just as good or better. It holds frets really, really well. It stays smooth. You don't have to worry about it drying out. So there's benefits to it. The downside to it that I understand is that if you go to refret it, it can be difficult to work with. But outside of that, it's a great material. So that's what's utilized on the fingerboard and the bridge along with select hardwood. Now let's talk about the back and sides. This is not HPL. This features koa, really nice, pretty looking koa on this that Martin calls a fine veneer. So effectively, it's a laminate like we're used to on a lot of other guitars. Now, laminates can be done in a lot of different ways, and we should make sure that we understand that. Because I think in some cases, laminate has gotten a bad rap, and it shouldn't, and it's not all created equal. So calling the X series a laminate like this is obviously wrong. That's HPL laminate, this is a fine veneer laminate. How you make the laminate can vary. So basically what you're doing is it's like plywood. You've got a center piece of wood, and then you've got an inner and outer piece of wood. And in this case, what's on here is koa. It's a very thin veneer of koa. And Martin has specified the wood that's being used on the inside of that sandwich as African mahogany. Now you can do that in one of two ways. You can run things parallel or perpendicular or kind of perpendicular on the grain. Okay, and that's going to affect how strong or rigid a piece is and how much it may or may not vibrate. So there's a lot of different ways basically of doing this. The materials that you use, the high pressure, the glues, all of that can have an effect to some extent or another on here. But we should understand that this is stronger and stiffer than solid wood. It's less expensive, it's more eco-conscious from that standpoint because you're using less koa. It's never going to sound as good as all solid koa in the respect that it's not going to influence the tone of the guitar and be as resonant because it's not solid wood. That being said, the way Martin does this, you see there's no bowl in the back. This is a braced back like their traditional guitars, unlike say Guild or Taylor that press a shape into the back and then don't use bracing. They've braced the back and constructed it traditionally on here. So it's for all intents and purposes a lot like a higher end triple O from Martin, and it features scalloped bracing. So the question in this experiment was, how would these guitars compare playing them? How would they feel? And how would they sound, most importantly? How much does the HPL's weight and rigidity versus a traditional laminate compare between these two guitars? So I put these two to the test, playing the exact same pieces on both guitars to get an idea. Check it out. So there you have it. What did you hear? Let me talk about what I felt, first of all, because that's something that is impossible really to convey through YouTube. What I felt was I liked the feel of this guitar a bit more. The nut width is the same. They're both 1 3/4 inch nut widths. The scale length is the same. They're triple-O, so it's 24.9 inch scale length, which is the measurement from the nut to the saddle, the vibrating length of the string. All of that affects, tension and feel. Both of them felt a little stiffer than I would expect them to, being triple-O's with light gauge strings, but this one felt better. The setup on it is a little bit better, I suppose. The neck feels a little bit better, even though I don't know what the material is. So I think it's the finish on it, really, that they've utilized compared to the X series. How they feel in another way is interesting. This is a much lighter guitar compared to this guitar. Okay? I wasn't struggling to pick it up, by the way. Do you even lift, bro? Yeah, so this is slightly heavier than this guitar. Slightly. I'd give it probably 2 pounds more, maybe 1.5 pounds more on the X series. But not just in holding the guitar, that translates through when playing the guitar. This guitar is more resonant. It is not as resonant as a, say, higher end 0018. That would be all solid. But it's approaching there, and there's definitely a distinct difference between the X series. And so, yeah, it's a better guitar. And it's kind of fascinating to me that even though they're both laminate, the way that construction has been utilized in this guitar makes for not just a lighter, but a more resonant, better sounding guitar when you're playing it. I didn't have to put in as much energy into this guitar to get volume out of it. I had to put more into it than I would on like a 0028, but that's a whole different price, category altogether. So all in all, it's a very, very nice guitar, particularly for the money. So let's talk money. So this is a little bit more than twice as much as the X series, okay? And you get a better bag for that. You get the same pickup. You get arguably better appearance. I mean, we can argue about it, but this is a better looking guitar, okay? I'm a huge fan of satin finishes. This is a better looking guitar. It's got a beautiful back and sides. It's got the nice rosette. It's all gloss. It's a better looking guitar. And it plays better. Is it worth twice as much? Arguably, yes. If you want something that's nice from Martin, that's the price for it. If you want something that's in between there are options. But basically, as you go up, this is what's happening. I like that Martin's doing this with a fine veneer. For years, it was like you got solid wood or you got HPL. And so I think this is a great option to add in there. It's very similar to what they're using on the S models, like the SC13E, which I'm a huge fan of. If you've been watching this channel, you know. And so if you like that guitar and you're wanting something a little bit more traditional, check out the 0013E. And there's also a Dreadnought version of this, the D13E. Fantastic guitars for the money. Now, if you cannot afford that and you want a Martin guitar and you're trying to keep the budget at around the $600-700, the X series has been a fantastic value for a long, long time. You get a lot of value from it. You get Martin build quality. It sounds pretty good. You might find guitars you prefer better at that price range. You might not, but I can tell you for about $649, I think is what the street price on a 0002XE is. It's pretty good, and if that's what you get, then it's a fantastic guitar. And by no means am I like trying to say, yeah, you didn't get a good enough guitar. It's a fantastic guitar. Play it. If you can get a better or spend twice as much to get this, you won't be disappointed. It's a better guitar. So that's my take from today. The experiment is as thus. My hypothesis is this would sound better. I proved it. Maybe I'm biased, but let me know what you think in the comments below. To your ear on the recording, compressed as it is through YouTube, did this sound better? At the end of the day, the best guitar in the world is the one that you're playing, so keep playing. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos, and keep coming back. I'll see you next time.